I give the floor to Pakistan.
Mr. President, I would like to thank you for convening this important debate. My delegation aligns itself with the statement delivered by the permanent representative of Italy on behalf of the Uniting for Consensus group. We are considering, once again, the important issue of the reform of the Security Council. The rationale and justification for the reform of the Council is clear. The Council should be reformed to make it more representative, more transparent, more accountable, and more effective. However, there remain significant differences on how these objectives can be achieved. The positions of all parties on the reform of the Security Council are well known. The position of the Uniting for Consensus group is also known to the entire membership. It was outlined again this morning by Italy. The members of the UFC continue to believe that our proposal offers the most promising basis to evolve a consensus, especially on the issue of equitable representation on the Security Council. Let me reiterate the virtues of the UFC proposal. One, our proposal is fair and equitable. It respects the principle of sovereign equality of states and does not discriminate between member states. Two, it will increase the opportunity for all member states, including the small and medium states, to secure more representation on the Security Council. Three, it will enhance the accountability of Security Council members through the democratic mechanism of periodic elections and, if agreed, re-elections. Four, our proposal is simple. It proposes a direct charter amendment for approval of the Assembly. Five, the UFC proposal is realistic. If approved, it is likely to secure the required ratifications, including the necessary ratification of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Six, the greatest virtue of the UFC proposal is its flexibility. It can accommodate, through variable arrangements in each region, the aspirations and interests of the majority of the membership, including regional groups such as the African group. Mr. President, we respect and understand Africa's desire for equitable representation on the Security Council. Africa is striving to redress a historic injustice. We believe that the UFC proposal is entirely compatible with the African approach. Both our position and that of the African Union is based on the principle that each region should be in a position to determine its own specific arrangement for representation on the Council. Africa's demand for 2, quote, permanent seats, unquote, in our view, is different from other proposals which seek permanent membership for individual states. Africa, as we see it, seeks permanent seats for the entire region. We note also that against the 2 empowered seats sought by Africa, representation on the Council could be from 2 or through rotation by a larger number of African states under arrangements to be made by the Africans themselves. In our view, rotation is the best means to ensure the representation of regional interests, including those of Africa, as well as to provide greater opportunities to all states to secure more frequent membership on the Security Council. Since our proposal is based on a regional approach, it could also accommodate the interests of sub-regional groups such as the Arab League, CARICOM, and Central America. Other groups such as the OIC could also secure assured representation against the seats allocated to the region of Africa or Asia. Moreover, through the provision for possible re-election, the UFC proposal offers the possibility for long-term and even continued membership for some states if, repeat, if they are nominated for the purpose by their respective regions. Mr. President, the position of the G4 is different. No one other than themselves have nominated these countries to respect their regions. While decrying that the Security Council is unrepresentative, they seek permanent membership for themselves. There have been many occasions in history, Mr. President, when the seekers of power and privilege have come before to declare that they are not here to praise Caesar, but to bury him. The Council's legitimacy and efficacy is not solely a function of its composition or the addition of new permanent members. The size and power of a state does not in itself qualify it for a permanent membership of the Council or other privileges within the United Nations, a United Nations which requires respect for the sovereign equality of states. Mr. President, at least one of the G4 does not, in our view, qualify for membership of the Security Council, permanent or non-permanent. It is in blatant violation of the resolutions of the Security Council. It is perpetrating a reign of terror in a territory it occupies with 900,000 troops. It has imposed a complete curfew and lockdown on 8 million people for over 100 days, and it is perpetrating massive violations of human rights against them and against its own minority communities. Mr. President, we are all aware that agreement within the general membership on the issue of representation on an enlarged Security Council requires difficult and patient dialogue. There are 5 clusters of issues that need to be addressed and resolved. Member states must be allowed the necessary time and space to reconcile their positions on all issues and to evolve a solution acceptable to the entire membership. It is therefore essential to engage in a dialogue and constructive negotiations to achieve an equitable and widely acceptable solution. Mr. President, the difficulties that have been encountered are not due to any deficiencies in the process. There is no such thing as a normal process in the United Nations. The General Assembly works in various different formats and modalities. Consensus can be evolved more easily through informal consultations rather than formalized processes. No text can be imposed in such consultations as the sole basis for negotiation. The largest possible agreement which is required can be reached only if all display flexibility and mutual accommodation, not by threats and references to majorities which remain in the realm of virtual reality. Mr. President, Pakistan believes that any decision on the reform of the Security Council should be adopted by consensus or at least the widest possible agreement. Our reasons for taking this position are clear. The reform of the Security Council is an important issue. It impinges on the national security interest of every member state. Any precipitate move to secure a decision by a vote will revive regional tensions and resurrect divisions within the organization. It would once again eclipse and possibly derail the work of the entire World Organization, most importantly on the development agenda. Moreover, any proposal for Security Council reform that is adopted by a divisive vote is unlikely to be translated into reality, since it will not obtain the ratification of all those that are required to ratify a charter amendment. Indeed, a divisive vote or an imposed decision is likely to freeze the status quo in the Security Council and thus squander the opportunity for an early and equitable reform of the Council. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Pakistan.